Sure. Okay. Are you ready? Oh, let's press record, please.
Hold on 1 second.
Time.
It started to storm. And I sometimes lose my internet.
Okay.
This meeting is being recorded.
Great.
Ready.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the June 21st Northampton School Committee special meeting. I'm Jean Louise Shara, the chair of the school committee, and I'll be presiding this evening. This meeting is being held remotely on Zoom pursuant to the modification of the state's open meeting law for the pandemic, and this meeting and all participating will be audio and video recorded. And I'm going to ask Cassie to please call the roll of the school committee.
Mayor Shara.
Present.
Member Gacy.
Sorry to interrupt, Cassie. Member Hennessy texted me she can't unmute, so she might need to be a co-host.
Let me call the roll and I'll get back to that, okay? I promise. No, wait, she wants to hear the roll.
She can hear. We just won't be able to hear her.
There we go. Come on, Nels. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, sorry. Member Gacy? Absent. Member Foster Cannon?
Present.
Member Stein?
Also can't unmute.
Yes, I'm here.
I apologize if I looked crabby right there. It's hot. Member Hennessy?
Present.
Member Miller? Oh, Wyoming. Member LaBounty? Okay. And Member Agna?
Oh, cannot unmute. Here you go.
Yes, here, present.
Thank you. Member Davis?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Great. Thank you.
I'm also present.
And Member Seraphy Cox.
I'm sorry, I thought I called you. My apologies.
Okay.
No worries.
First item on the agenda is a vote on the FY25 budget. And Dr. Bonner, am I handing this over to you? I know that you've had some communication with Attorney Taylor.
Yes. So with the outcome of last night's City Council not voting for the budget, this afternoon I spoke to Attorney Taylor as well as Glenn Kuchar from MASC in terms of concerning what we as a body need to do this evening, or as the school committee as a body needs to do this evening. We do need a form of a budget to be able to enact for July 1st. And so we cannot vote above the appropriation. So right now, what still stands on the table was the original budget that Mayor Shara presented back on May 16th, which was the 5% increase budget. And the actual amount of that budget is $39,673,835. And so we were thinking that we were voting for the 8% budget, and that's what you see on the agenda, the 40 million plus, including the Special Ed Sustainability Fund, as well as the donation from Smith College. So we cannot move forward with that particular amount, but we can move forward with the 39 million. And so based upon that, the vote would be a bottom line vote this evening with further discussions later on pertaining to the cost centers that may go with that vote. But we're hoping that that it will move to the 8% and we will be able to do what we need to do in terms of what was presented 2 weeks ago to this body pertaining to the 8% presentation. And so that's where I am in terms of that. But Bobby has the presentation for the cost centers, but it's pointless to look at the 8% ones tonight. And you actually have that, what was sent to you on yesterday afternoon.
So you said bottom line. So no discussion of cost centers tonight, just the total, just that total, the 39 amount that you.
Correct.
Okay. Member Stein?
Thanks. I had a chance to talk with Attorney Taylor about this as well and try to understand what our options are. And yes, as Dr. Bonner pointed out, the thing that would be helpful if we do vote for what we know we will assuredly get will allow certain spending to happen right away on July 1 and certain ordering to happen now. So it's useful for us to pass that budget. But we could also pass the higher budget with the caveat that it will go into effect when that money is appropriated to the orders that the mayor announced were going to be voted on either on or before July 1st. So it'd save us from coming back to vote for that higher appropriation. So we could pass two different things. One is to adopt this, and one is to adopt the other. The other would come into effect once that other appropriation is made. So that's one idea of what we could do that's allowable. The other thing I would suggest is, regardless of if we pass one of those budgets or both of those suggestions I'm giving you, we should begin to have a discussion of the line items, because at some point we will have to actually have a conversation about what they look like and approve them. So I don't think it makes sense for us to figure out a line item down to 39 million, because there's no reason to believe we're going to actually end up there. So I agree with that entirely. But I think we should have the broader conversation about the line items at the 40,877,000. So that's sort of my suggestion on a way to go forward that would move things sort of more quickly. We wouldn't have to come back on July 1st to try to vote for something that we all have good reason to believe will happen on or before July 1st. And we could then figure out when we're going to do a revised line item for that total amount, or if you feel like you can do it tonight. So just some other options. These are legal options available to us to deal with the sort of situation we're in.
Okay, Member Seraphy Cox?
Yeah, I was gonna basically have a line of questioning, kind of seeing if that was possible. So I guess I am just curious. I mean, that sounds good to me, and so I'm wondering if that is anything that Dr. Bonner, you had, were considering. Was there any reason to not do that?
So if everyone's in agreement, we can move forward with the conversation around the cost centers that we sent out to you on yesterday afternoon. And I believe Bobby is present. And if she would begin to take us through, if everyone's in agreement with that, we can move forward with that, which is fine. That's what we had planned.
Okay. Anyone else want to weigh in on that or have opinions on whether to do that now or on July 1st? Member Foster Cannon?
Yeah, I just want to clarify. So this is what the discussion we'll have right now is based on the budget with amendments that was before City Council last night. I do think it's important because it hasn't been settled, the vote. I don't see why it wouldn't, come back. Mayor, you said you would bring those amendments back, but I do think it's important that we understand what's at stake if those amendments don't pass, that, we sort of can have that conversation of what that dollar amount would mean to the schools too.
Okay. Anybody who hasn't spoken like to speak? Member Davis? Oh, can you not unmute? Hold on. No, you're a co-host.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I'm using on my phone, and I'm learning where all the buttons are. I wanted to clarify. So if we proceed, I'm pretty sure there must be an answer to this. How do we know if we're going through the cost centers? How do we know where to stop, since we're talking about a smaller amount of money? If I'm understanding quickly, like at a certain point we say, oh, we're only talking about this smaller amount of money. Does that make sense?
What Bobby has presented is for the larger amount.
And so the proposal is that we're going to go through that larger amount, not what I thought I heard Member Stein say was that we could see it as in two parts and get started with that smaller amount. No, I may have misunderstood that.
Well, sorry, were you going to speak, Dr. Bonner? Where are you?
So to my understanding, there's actually two motions that you would probably need to vote on this evening. So one being to move forward with the 39 million budget as of July 1st. And then the second would be in consideration of when City Council passes that vote to go then to the 8%. So you actually have two motions, and I just, if I am misreading that understanding, please clarify.
That sounds accurate to me. Does that make sense, Member Davis?
Yes.
Okay. Member Stein and Member Foster Cannon.
Yeah, just to echo what Dr. Bonner said, that's exactly what we're suggesting, because if we pass the 39 number and change now, it just gives the district the ability to start doing all the things they have to do. And if we also pass today this other one with the caveat that it's based on the other orders passing, then it would supersede the 39. So we wouldn't have to come back. So the idea was to just have the conversation about the larger budget, which is the cost centers we have tonight, because that's extremely likely where this is going to end up. But we can't really authorize the school to do that until it's done, hence the need for the two votes, right? So we're just trying to give the most amount of flexibility to the district for the next 10 days or less, and then land where we're going to land, and then use the space now to have the conversation about what the actual likely budget is going to look like at the line item cost center level.
Okay, thank you. Member Foster Cannon.
I don't want to split hairs. I just want to make sure, though, because the only vote on the agenda is specifically the $40,778,585. Like, I also want the district to be able to move forward. I just want to make sure that if we take a vote on the smaller amount, we're okay with that, because the agenda doesn't have that.
So I did ask about that. That was the real concern. And so the motion that's already printed as on the agenda just tells the public that this is the matter that's being discussed, and you can, edit or alter the amendment, or make an amendment to the motion, or change the motion to the lesser amount. So I did check into that. So that was from MASC.
All right, thanks, Dr. Bonner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Member Seraphic, nope. Took your hand down. What's that? Okay. Okay, if there are no further questions, shall we go to Bobby to
Yes.
walk us through? Hi, Bobby. Are you? I think Bobby needs to be made a co-host as well, please.
I already did. I thought.
Is that? Oh yeah, to be able to share her screen, she'll need to be made a co-host.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I already did. Let's see.
I think so.
She's not there.
R. Jones?
I'm not seeing it.
I am. You can flip hosting to me, and I'm happy to take over the making people co-host if you like.
That would be swell.
Okay.
Wow.
You see where I am?
Yeah.
Bobby, are you connected to audio though? Because I see an option to mute you, but we can't hear you.
Oh, true. I don't know why.
Should be all set.
Thank you. So Bobby, you're a co-host, but it's true that we can't hear you. But you're not muted.
I'm gonna try muting and unmuting.
Okay. Okay, try unmuting, Bobby.
Oh boy. I'm not getting anywhere.
Bobby, what's going on? Are you having problems?
Oh,
Okay. She's gonna leave. Yeah, she's gonna leave and come back. Okay, Bobby.
sounds good.
Okay. Sorry, it was multiple conversations. So
I understand. But so school committee members know this was also sent to us. If we want to sort of work on pulling that up ourselves right now, we could do that. Right.
if you like, I could just begin in terms of you have several cost centers. So it's broken down by the district, the schools, as well as central services and special education. I am seeing that I'm actually missing one of the schools.
Can I ask a question about the documents?
Sure.
Are we better off all looking at the FY25 all, does that have all the cost centers? Or should we go between them or, oh, poor Robbie.
All right. So if it's done correctly, the very first document is the all. So it has all of the pieces of the district. It's the entire operating budget. And so you might want to go through that one, which will probably be the best way to go through it. And then it breaks it down by those other pieces. I know some people like to look at it via schools, so.
Okay, Bobby, you're a co-host and I've sent you a request to unmute. Ta-da!
And you're not muted, but we can't hear you. If you click on the little caret next to the microphone, have you tried all those different options in there? I know. Sorry. Had to ask.
If she could share her screen and I can put her on speaker on my phone. As the old-fashioned way we used to do Zoom.
You should be able to share Bobby as co-host.
While she's doing, I'm going to go scan my documents in. I don't have them electronically. So if we need to share a screen, we can do it that way and I can take us through.
Well, don't we have them?
You do have them.
What I could you want me to forward you this? Because then you'll have them.
That's true. Actually, maybe I should be CC'd on that, but I don't know if I was. So let me just.
I think you are, but this should just send it right to the top for you.
Okay.
You guys, I have it. Do you want me to share it?
Oh, that's fine. Thank you. I forgot, Cassie. I'm so sorry. I forgot that you are equipped and you can handle this. Please go ahead. We're
Oh,
not
thank
used to
you.
that. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm going to give it a go. It's challenging to take the minutes at the same time, but all right. Screen share. So what do you want to start with?
And if it's done right, I want the top full general budget. That's the one. And we'll go through there. Bobby, can I put you on speaker? Okay.
All right. So I have to tell you, I'm not really prepared. Only because I thought we were talking about the lower budget, even though we have movement to the higher budget. But let's see what we can do. So if you want to share the all, and then if I could.
Dr. Bonner, I wonder if maybe you turn down the volume on your computer, then her voice won't be coming through and echoing.
Okay. Try it. Let's hear now.
Okay, and can you make it any bigger, Kathy?
Mike, you have challenged my technical
No.
prowess.
The percent box up there, 100%, just put it to 135 or so.
I am not getting that.
Right above where it says sorted by DESI function, you see that there's a in the header.
This, no, not there.
Go down
Down.
Let me turn
and then
this.
center.
There it is. How's that?
Great.
A little better. Really. All right, so this document here is
We have
general fund budget.
we might want to just have Bobby dial in on her phone into
Yeah,
the meeting
I might do that.
so we can hear her.
Yeah.
No, so I'm gonna hang up and go in on my phone.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay, so meanwhile, while she's revving up, let me take you through the front page. And so the district expenses you can see, and remember that we had some reductions in central office staff, just to remind you of those components. And that was actually done this year in terms of our school committee clerk, as well as our registrar for the district. Some other additional areas where you'll see differences. Let's see. Services. So contract services, you will see there's a small increase from 18,000 to 23,000. That's Bobby can speak to that. I'm sure it's mostly due to inflation and increase of costs. Cassie, if you can scroll upward. Okay. Let's see. All right. So another area of services, you see that there's a change in the legal service for SPED account, that there is a decrease there. That was, again, some savings, some cost savings. Hopefully we will be able to manage there. Let's see, data coordinator. So in terms of salaries, you know that salary increases range between 2.5% all the way to approximately 14%, depending upon the non-contracted personnel versus the unit personnel. So right away, as you're starting to see the actual line items of different salaries, you'll see those increases. Cassie, if you can scroll for me. Okay. So there is a change in the contract services to DW. So Bobby's going to have to help with some of this components and pieces and tell you what's actually in that line item. But there was an increase in some of our contractual services as we phased out one area and increased in another. Let's see. You'll see a change in our family engagement coordinator's position. Let's see.
Someone may need to let Bobby in. I can't see the Zoom part now.
So she hasn't come in yet.
Oh, okay.
I haven't seen her anyways. Oh, yeah, she is.
She's here.
She's here.
Is it the
Bobby?
584-8944 number?
There. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Thank you.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah, it's okay. It's been that kind of a month. So I just mentioned to them in terms of the salary scale. So it runs from 2.5% increase all the way to about 14% increase in terms of the salary, depending upon whether it's a non-contractual personnel versus a union personnel. And so right now there's an increase in, I'm actually in line, and hopefully you can see that, line 45, looking at the increase, line 43, the increase in contract services for DW Tech contract services. That's a jump.
Yep. So that is your and you said 43?
So I'm sorry,
District,
in line. So
yeah.
let me just tell you, the DESI number is 1450.
Yeah.
It's the second on that line, DW Tech contract services.
All right. Let's see, DW Tech. I don't see an increase in that line if I'm looking at the same. So you have DW Tech software, W, which is district-wide, by the way, Tech contract service. There's no increase there.
I'm sorry, I started at, okay, so there's no change, but originally it started off as 1,000. I'm sorry, I looked at another piece.
Okay. So we're on the
Take
regular...
it from there. Take it from there. That's where we are.
Okay. So the increase for family engagement coordinator is your regular increase percent. That's a 3.5 in this case. On the director of curriculum, we were able to take that line down some. Curriculum director supply stayed the same. We'll just go through the lines that have increases or decreases. And if you want me to slow down or speed up, just let me know. Director of special ed, that's a 3% increase. That's based on our current director. Then we added the Title IX, which was not previously in the contract or in the budget last year, but was part of the Director of Health Services, and that moved. So we added $11,000 for that line. So that's the reason that one's a 100% increase. SPED office clerical, that's your just regular contractual increases. That's at a 5%. And then we move down to department head stipends and team leader stipends. That's an increase according to contract. And I just did the And then the academic chair stipend, the same. Then we move on to the ETL, and you'll see that that's a big decrease. And that's because there was a shift in the way that the funding is coming in through the early childhood grants, the CPPI and CFCE. Early childhood supervisor is no change. Again, the majority of that is through grants. The next line is the tech integration specialist for JFK, which was a retirement that is not being replaced. Then we have the principal for Bridge Street. That's a contractual with the 3%, not a contractual, but a negotiated contract. Then the head teacher stipend, just the regular 3% contract increase. Principal office clerical, that's a decrease. That does include contractual increases, but there's a decrease because a position was eliminated there. And then if you move to page 3.
Bobby, do you want folks to ask questions as you go along? Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd probably be easier.
Okay, member sign, then member Agna.
Thanks, Bobby. I have a number of of questions for you, but just one sort of request. And I know you're reading the lines as they are in our systems, but folks in the disability community and students with disability really do not like the abbreviation.
You're right. My apologies. Again. And I will fix those too.
And I see in the columns, right? One thing I want to make sure my colleagues understand, and I'm hoping you can explain, is that there are two sort of budget lines here. So, right, the third column over is not part of the 40,800,000 and change, but is a different total that's running kind of in parallel, right? So if I'm reading this correctly, what you're saying is we used to have the ETL money built into our operating budget, but because of the way we get the grants now, it's not part of it. So there's a shift of 89.1%, but that just means that we're getting the $394,600 as part of a grant that's on top of the 40,000,008. So I just want my colleagues to understand the two columns and what the actual total of the whole budget is here. So I have, if you could answer if that's a correct way to look at it, that would be great. And then I just had a few questions about sort of line items that you've gone through so far.
Yes, that's correct. So if you look at that column, as you said, that is the general fund budget, and the column to the right of it would be anything that's paid out of somewhere else, such as revolving or grants, etc.
Great. So question I have for you about, let's see here. I have one question that's more for, one question for you, Bobby, and then one question for Dr. Bonner. Question for you is on I know the business office support line, it's had probably a normal contractual increase. I'm wondering how many staff we have in that line, and if there are ways to reduce that line by implementing new technologies in order to save frontline personnel.
So I can talk about the business office. Currently, in that budget, we have 2.9 in the clerical union, and then we have one business administrator assistant, and then myself. As far as the ability to reduce, I'm sorry, and then it also includes one payroll person. At this point, we are looking at some softwares in order to help our payroll person, because that person is currently having to work weekends and holidays, and all kinds of hours because it's hard to keep up with the absences. And the TS ones, those are extra pays from the schools, as well as those people that go into what's called no pay status. So we should actually be hiring additional staff. But we are looking, rather than to hire somebody, we're looking into using some technology, as well as using our other staff within the office to help out that person to keep up with these demands. And we've said in other meetings that, you know, there's just tons of absences and tons of TS1s. And then as the year progresses, there ends up with a lot of people that go into the unpaid status, which is all additional work that you have to do on top of normal regular work. So in my opinion, I would say we should be adding rather than decreasing in the business office.
Great, thank you.
You-
And then could you help, I guess, explain the increase on the digital literacy coordinator, right?
Right. So the digital literacy coordinator, if you recall last year, for the FY24 budget, we had reduced that position to 0.5. And then when the year was coming upon us, it was brought to school committee to increase that position from the 0.5 to the 1.0. So that's why you see that large of a increase on that line.
And then the other question, this might be more for Dr. Bonner, but I know we had the savings of the 33,000 it's like line 12 here, the superintendent support, which, as you explained, was the reduction in the clerk. My concern is still that I don't know how we're getting the backlog of meeting minutes, and we've got like a $200,000 liability kind of hanging over our head with those, $1,000 per meeting instance. So I'm still wondering where in the budget we're allocating resources to reduce that liability.
So there is no allocation. We are actually doing the catch up of those minutes based upon the staffing that we currently have. And just a reminder that the priority was to try to maintain student facing positions. And so there's only so many places where we can trim. And so every department felt the cuts, as well as this department. So right now, currently, we still have individuals who are working on that project. And so we do the best that we can.
Okay, and just to be clear, though, we voted to make that change quite a while ago, not part of the budget conversation to save money. That was a recommendation. It may have been informed by that, but that was voted when we posted the ad. So I guess what I'm hearing is we still have a lot of liability. We're slowly closing the gap with what we have, but until it's fully closed, we have the liability.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, I'll save the more questions for when we go through more. Thank you.
Member Agnew?
She can unmute.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Excuse me. I know that we're at a deadline at this point, but I also am really concerned that it's 4:30 on a Friday to go line by line through the budget at this point and wonder what my colleagues might think about, sorry to say this, another meeting after we've had a chance to look at all of these, because I'm glad that you have the questions that you have, Member Stein, but getting it yesterday, I didn't have a chance to go through it. And, you know, this is just me. And if you're wanting to do it, I, of course, would go along with it. But I just wondered what others might be thinking.
Is there anyone who wants to weigh in on that other than Member Stein? Anyone who hasn't spoken? I can't see all of you as my current issue. So If you can raise your Zoom hand, it would help me be able to see you. Member Seraphy Cox?
Yeah, I have like a couple specific questions. So I think at the very least, it would be good to take questions that members already have prepared. But I would be open to, not having this conversation on as much of a deadline, but have as much of it as we can right now, for sure.
Any other comments? Member Stein?
Yeah, I mean, I share Member Agnes' concern. I know, we asked for this and we weren't able to get it till with not enough time. I guess I would like to have more time to look at it myself, and I think we all should. I guess my only concern is if decisions are going to be made based on this that affect recall staff and everything else that we haven't actually talked about. I don't feel great about that. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm just very frustrated. This is literally the same number that was essentially presented in December, and it's June 20th when we got an actual line item on it. And that's just like really frustrating. I know a lot of things have changed between now and then, but the core of it really hasn't for a long time. And I know it was clear for at least weeks that this was going to be the number. So I just don't understand why we didn't have something sooner. And that's just frustrating. So I'd like us to use the time to get as much info as we can, but yeah, I think we need to give everyone more time to look at it because it's just not enough.
Member Hennessy? We can't hear you. There you go.
Got me? Okay. It doesn't matter to me if we continue and ask what questions we have, but I would agree with Member Agnes' initial comment that this is a lot to have gone through, and perhaps having another meeting so we can have more, not critical questions, but more questions for us and for the public, who I know there are quite a few people here. But it's been a confusing process, and it has been clearly, a long process. And I just want to make sure it's done well, and we're not rushing through it. And I know this meeting is posted till 6, and some of us have a hard stop then or a little bit before. So I would like to have more time with this committee and Dr. Bonner, and whether or not, we do it all at another time or finish what we have now or not, it doesn't matter to me.
Okay, thank you. So shall we continue on? If people have questions that are already queued up, like Member Seraphy Cox, do you want to start with those?
It's not about something that we've already gone through on the pages. Is that okay?
Got it. Let me go to Dr. Bonner first and see.
Sure.
Just very quickly, just in case we start to lose people when they have those hard stops, can we do a vote for the 39 million so that July 1st we can move forward?
Can actually pay bills. I'll make a motion. Can I get that actual number one more time?
Yes.
39.
30,673,835.
673.
835.
And no cents. Okay. So I would make a motion to approve a bottom line budget of $39,673,835, with the expectation we will be passing additional money in the future.
Motion's made by member Seraphy Cox, seconded by. I can't see you all, so
Member Agna has her hand up.
okay, can someone make member, or not someone? Cassie, can you make member Agna a co-host? I cannot find member Agna anywhere.
I
There.
got it. I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Are you seconding that motion? Now you're muted, but I'm gonna.
Now I seconded it.
Okay, Cassie, member Agna does need to be made a co-host, please.
I,
Okay,
I've unmuted myself by myself this time.
okay.
Thank you.
I'm not sure how you did that, but
I asked her to unmute.
okay. Brava. Okay, motion's been made by member Seraphy Cox, seconded by member Agna. Further discussion. I see member Davis. Go ahead, member Davis. Member Davis, can you unmute? What is happening? Okay, go ahead, member Davis. You should be able to unmute now, but need to be made a co-host.
Okay. Thank you. I wanted to say two things. One is now I've got onto the computer, but I may lose it with the Wi-Fi, so I apologize. And I was trying to second it. That's why I couldn't do that. So thank you.
Okay, great.
That's all.
Cassie, when you get a second, if you make me host, I promise you I'm responsible and I can take care of making people co-hosts. I've done it for years, so that I could just help you out with that. But you have to make me yay, I am great. Thank you. I will wield that.
I'm eternally grateful for that.
Absolutely my pleasure. Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please, Cassie.
Member Foster Cannon,
Yes.
Member Seraphy Cox,
Yes.
Member Stein,
Yes.
Member Hennessy,
Yes.
Member Agna,
Yes.
Member Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Shara.
Yes.
Yes. And okay, good.
Oh, sorry, member LaBounty.
It's not here.
Nope, right there, and now a co-host, and also asked to unmute.
Yes.
Great.
Hey, Member LaBounty, you're yes?
Yes. Great. Okay, thank you for that suggestion, Dr. Bonner. Now, going back, so does that work for everybody? If people have questions that they already have formulated, like member Seraphy Cox, that we move to those? Is that the pleasure of the committee? I see some nods. Yep, and a thumbs up. Okie dokie. Great. So member Seraphy Cox, is there anyone else who already has questions? You want to give me a heads up? Okay, we're gonna let member Seraphy Cox and then member Stein. Is that your heads up? Okay, so go ahead, member Seraphy Cox, and then we'll move to member Stein.
Yeah, thank you. I am wondering about the 504 academic testing at the middle school. I see that it was budgeted in 23. It was not budgeted in 24. It doesn't look like it's moving in from grant funding. Is it actually an addition of a position that was not there in 24?
Right. So in this latest version, what happened it was not budgeted for 24, but they had some other positions that shifted. So they were able to bring back that position at the 0.5. And then at one point we reduced that 0.5 position, but in the latest version, that 0.5 is shown in the budget as a halftime, but it's really probably going to end up as being the 504 position cut and a reading position instead of the position, as per the request of the principal.
Okay, so what's in there will probably be swapped out. The 504 coordinator 0.5 position won't be there, but a reading interventionist, is that what you're meaning?
Correct, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just ask for a second? Member Foster Cannon, are you asking a follow-up to that question, or are you queuing for questions?
Queuing, and I just have one at the moment.
Okay, great, thanks.
I'm good for now.
Oh, okay, great. Then moving on to Member Stein. You're muted.
Sorry about that. I was just saying I'm having to turn my video on and off because my internet keeps going in and out to keep the Zoom. So apologies if that's distracting. So I had some questions about, there's sort of a number of positions that are, sorry, I'm trying to find them on the page. There are a number of ESP positions that have been added back, or I don't know if they're added back actually. They're listed under the other funding line. So there is there's a number that are, let's see, I guess we could just treat them as a whole for this the purposes of this conversation, but you know, like 277 through 281, we have a number of, oh no, I'm sorry, those are not those. Those are not those. Bear with me. Go to the.
Are you looking at like 262 or sorry, 263 in like at the bottom of page 7?
Yes, those are some of them there. Yep. There's also a number at NHS that are somewhere else, but there's some pretty significant positions. So like 260, and thank you, Member Sarby, guys. Like 260, we have an ESP listed, students with disabilities, and the line item dollar figure is sort of split, I think, over 158,860 that seems to be part of the 40,800,000 and change. And then we have an additional 222,577 that's in the other column. And so I guess I'm wondering how we're paying for those and like how many positions those are. And I have like the same question for, you know, 263, 264, et cetera, because it looks to me that we're feeling a lot of critical ESP positions to work with students with disabilities with non-recurring revenue, depending on what the other portion of this is, right? Because some of it is recurring, some of it is not. So I guess anything you could tell us about these ESP positions and the splits on the funding lines and how much we're actually spending on them and like where the sources are coming from and like how many there are. Like if it's the BSS one, is that a group of them that are in that 300 and some odd thousand pile? Like how many? Any details would be awesome.
Yeah, so if you look at that number, so for instance, I'll just take line 260 for Bridge Street. And there is 158,860 under the general fund. And then there's 222,577 under the other column. So in the particular special education special education para-educators, you'll notice that in each one of those. And so the other column represents the school choice piece that we use. Now, to see the actual positions in the budget only, that is evident if you go like into each class center. So if you went over to Bridge Street's class center, you would then see it broken out budget wise how many ESPs that's paying for. That does not, the document does not show that, however, for the special education. I mean, for the special education fund. It doesn't show it by position. So I don't know if that helped you.
So I think so. So you're saying like for in this case, right, if we're looking at that line that's related to Bridge Street, if I look at the Bridge Street cost center, I'll see these positions there. And I'll see, but will I see them funded from other funding, or will it only be I'm getting the same view, right? But it's going to be more detailed. And they're showing there rather than in the, I believe we have the special education cost center. So they'd be at the school.
Right. So under the pupil services or special education class center, you'll see that under by each school. You'll see like para, and you'll see their budgeted amount under each. But I don't believe, and I was just going to try to pull that up if I could. I don't believe it shows I know it doesn't show it by the school choice piece, just by the general fund piece.
Like a follow-up question on that, like, so for that column K that we're talking about, right, the total there is like 4,824,875, right? So that the total budget we're actually talking about here is 45,603,460. The school choice is one of the things making up the 4,824,875. But like, how much of it is that? Because everything is just totaled here. So like, I don't know which pieces in here are reimbursements from the circuit breaker. I don't know which pieces are funded from school choice. I don't know which pieces are funded from the remaining ESSER dollars. Like, I don't understand how to know when I look at it what the source of revenue is that's adding up to that 4.8 million, right? Because I know we don't have 4.8 million in that fund for school choice, right? So it's like, I don't know which ones are being tagged to which positions.
Right. I can tell that. I can tell you which ones, for the most part, what they're coming out of. Or I could do a separate document. But excuse me, but to get everything on one document, in this case, I mean, the document would be quite large, but I certainly could do that if that's the request of the school committee. But I could also do it separately, or I could verbally tell you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, it's whatever the committee wants is fine. It's just so much of our issues have come from this non-appropriation pot of money and the way things are linked, that I think going forward, we need to have an exceptional level of clarity and understanding of what those are, because if there's a significant portion of actual positions that we're talking about funding this way this year, and that money doesn't come back next year, we're talking about additional cuts than we may be imagining on a 3% increase or whatever else has been said. So I just really want us to understand how we're paying for everything in this budget, so that we know this cycle. Yeah.
So also, if you go back to your budget book as was presented in December, you'll notice that there is that one page, and I think you're very familiar with it, as I shared some of the past years with you, although I think this one is a little more detailed than what was in past years. But you'll see in that one page document, which is like the fifth or sixth, actually it's like the fourth page on your budget book, and it gives you what's from appropriation, what's from school choice, what's from ESSER, and then there's another list of others. So that includes your circuit breaker, your sped entitlement, etc. There has been some changes since this document was printed, so won't match 100% at this point. It will be updated when we finally get a final number. But at this point, this would kind of guide you. So that might be helpful as well.
Yeah, it is helpful to see what the pieces are, but it's still not that link to which position, right? Versus total dollar figure and say, if the total amount of positions is X, and we know this might not recur, then this many are at risk. Maybe that's the way to figure it out. But if we are doing some sort of calculation on the back end, which is linking specific positions to these funds, it would be, and that's already like done, and we could see what it is, that would be really helpful too.
Okay, maybe that is a good way. That's a good suggestion. Perhaps if I put a link so that you click on that number, it'll break it down for you.
Thanks so much.
A good thing, yeah. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to go to member Foster Cannon. Do you still have a question? Yes?
Yeah, thanks. This is more of a question, I think, for Dr. Bonner. When we last met as a full school committee to go through this, one of the questions that was unresolved was some choices at the high school regarding math, English, and guidance counselor. And I'm seeing here, but I'm just wondering if you could take us through your thought process and the decisions that you anticipate making should the budget pass or should the amendments pass.
Okay, so clarification, there is no cut to guidance counselor, it's the adjustment counselor.
Thank you. It was listed as guidance in this, but yes, adjustment.
Okay, originally, long before, back in December, there was consideration of that, of one of the guidance counselor position, but that has changed. So currently right now, it's just the adjustment counselor that is position that will not be renewed, and that was due to attrition. And then it was conversation about 2 full-time staff members in the academic areas, one in English and math, that were rift. And so with the potential of the 8% budget, it was to the understanding that one of those academic positions would be restored. And of course, this is a conversation with administration in terms of which one was to be restored. And the request was for the math position to be restored. So that's where we are now. There have been multiple suggestions about other areas to cut, and I do not agree with some of those suggestions. One being the gateway programming and dual enrollment. And I looked at this number of students and the cohort of students of those programs and who they would affect, and to be equitable, I just felt that that was not a way to go. So right now we are anticipating the loss of one academic instructor at the high school, depending on what our appropriations will be. Foster Cannon, did I answer completely?
You
there
did,
was
thank
other
you.
positions too. Okay.
Okay, member Agna.
First, thank you to my colleagues for agreeing that we need a little more time with this. I think it will be important for us to make sure we get through it. I had one question about the pupil services or student services budget, because I wondered if this is a new model that is being delivered, that there are special ed teachers at the elementary level, but not the, I guess, I don't know if they were called ETLs or where they were shared between 2 schools to have a person who's chaired meetings. And I just wondered that because I know there's been a lot of conversation about the needs of special education and the concern about the funding for it. So if there are more teachers who are direct service rather than chairing IEP meetings, then I thought it'd be good for the public to know that too.
So the new model actually started prior to me coming in to district. It was implemented at the beginning of my tenure. And so it was suggested that there would be 2 coordinators.
Right.
at the elementary level, and so each covering 2 schools, and those are still maintained.
Okay, I couldn't
the
see
budget.
them. That's why I was.
So let me explain. Part of their salaries are in
Okay.
the special education grants, the IDEA, the two.
Okay.
Is it? I don't want to speak the wrong numbers, but I want to say 234 and so on. So some of that was there was a lot of shifting of some portions of salaries into grants to be able to maintain some of those positions. And then just to clarify too, at the middle school and high school level, there is someone who coordinates at each of those buildings as well.
Right.
So there's actually 4 coordinators in the district that fall under the associate director and the director of student services. So
Great.
that's the organizational chart as of to date.
Great, thank you. I just, when I looked at it, I didn't see the coordinator or whatever, but now I understand. Thank
Okay.
you.
You're welcome.
Bobby, did you have something? No? Okay, are there other questions that people have? Member Seraphy Cox?
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking at line 40 on the first page. And apologies if you went over this before, Bobby. The digital literacy coordinator. It looks like between 24 and 25, it's almost being doubled. Is that an additional position?
I can speak to that. We actually did talk about that a minute ago. Well, not a minute ago,
Apologies.
but at the beginning. So this was a position prior to my tenure that was slated to be RIFT. And it was requested that, or actually, excuse me, part 0.5. It was 0.5 position. And it was asked to be restored to full-time when I came in. And that was partly because at that time we did not have anyone to assist us. The city side, our CEO for technology was missing or interim. And so it was a main request of mine to restore that position to full-time to assist us with what we needed in the district. And so that's why it looks doubled, but that request came in this current school year. So, but originally it was appropriate at 0.5. And Bobby, you can kind of bring that history home if I messed up on that.
Yeah, thank you. And apologies. I heard what was being said there, but that feels clear in my brain now as well. I guess it sounds to me like what you're maybe saying is that it's a support to the schools around technology needs in place of not having the support from what used to come from the city side. Because digital literacy coordinator, like that sounds like something different than like a CTO.
It's a combination of in terms of what she does for the district beyond webmastering and organizing our rollout out of our Chromebooks and our policy setting and ensuring that our platforms are right and having the different apps to run smoothly and making sure that our privacy laws are accurate. And so there's multiple pieces in which that position assists us. And so it is a position that's needed. And especially I say this in regards to the fact that we are thoroughly in the age of AI, and we really need someone who is going to help us to monitor through this season and all the changes that are coming. And she works with our integration specialists, and they have also transitioned into not just, they are beyond just assisting staff members, but they are actually also student facing. They do project-based learning with our students. They're the ones who are implementing the STEM components into our curricula. So actually the title of that position is misleading as opposed to what the expanse of what that position now covers. So, and then I believe that this was a position prior to me coming into the district that was handled by an individual who, I mean, the most of the different pieces and components to our platforms, our technological platforms, are really guided through that position. And so it's I feel that it's needed. So
I hear that, and I also look at that, and that's, you know, almost the cost of the teacher. So it's hard. And I mean, if, yeah, but I guess I hear you about that, and I also think that in terms of my prioritization would be for a teacher position rather than that.
Member Stein?
I just sort of have a request because it sounds like we're heading to another meeting, which I think is a good thing. That conversation was really helpful to sort of understand the thinking and the where you're coming from, Dr. Bonner, in terms of the trade-offs and decision making. And I think it would really be helpful for all of us if you could give us a overview of the choices that you had to make and maybe why you made those choices for this budget, because that gives us more information about line items that we may want to change as a committee, or we feel like we might weigh things differently, or we hadn't thought about the way you consider weighing them, and we might say, I get it. So if we could have something like that as an overview when we talk again about this, I think that would just be really helpful for me, and I'm guessing some of my colleagues. We got into this a little bit at our last meeting, but I was sort of trying to understand some of the changes in elementary school apportionment, and I take to heart like what you said early on about, you know, equality and equity are not the same thing. So looking apples to apples doesn't tell the whole story. So I'd love to understand like some of the data and the things that you see that kind of give context to the decisions. So that would be my request for our next meeting. I just think it would be really helpful for all of us as we look to pass the final line item version. Thanks.
if I could just remind the school committee, and I will actually resend this to you all on Monday. I'm not going to do it this evening, but I gave you 4 principles in which we used to make our decisions. And I will remind the committee of that so that you know that these weren't random decisions made. And now that I am going to attach the supporting data to these decisions. And then when you have these conversations, I'm also going to call in the administrators so that they can justify in terms of why they made those requests in which they did. So it is hard decisions that have to be made, but these are decisions made by our administration based upon them knowing the needs of their building and what's in front of them and what they can do with what staff they have. So, but I will be glad to justify the rationale for the decision making.
Okay, Member Senator and Member Agnew.
Yeah, thanks. I think that, well, just I'll say that at our next meeting, I will make an amendment to whatever motion is on the floor, or if I'm the one making the motion, a part of my motion will be to delay the increase in school committee stipends for 1 fiscal year. So that would take away the increase of $37,700 for that line item, so that, you know, I mean, that's a paraprofessional, like, and obviously that money would go into student facing position.
Member Agna.
This is, I guess, in the comment section. The last school committee budget season that I participated in when I was a principal was a contentious one in terms of the leadership administration being questioned about why they made decisions. And of course, I was a leadership person then. And I think Emily might remember, she was the only one on school committee then that I recall. Yes. And it was Dina and Kaya. And it was difficult. I remember it being difficult, and I remember that it's sort of the definition of where the line is, I think. And I know it's an overused phrase, but where our lane is in terms of how much we have input into decision making. And maybe that's not what is being asked. Maybe it's more about hearing from Dr. Bonner of the sort of philosophical overpinnings, if it were, as underpinning for her approach to a budget, and then also from the principals about it. And I think that if that's what we want, I can go along with it, because I really think that it's fine for the public to know those things, but also the line that I think that Member Hennessy has said at some point, or Member Foster I can't remember, when talking about that the superintendent is in charge of making these decisions, while we can have some comments, input, or whatever. But I am recalling being on the other side and feeling like it was the first time in the 24 years that I was a principal that the school committee was asking us not only why we did things, but they wanted things to change. I believe that there were members of the school committee who said, no, you don't want to spend money on that. We think you should spend money on this. And so I don't know if we're going down that road, but I don't think it's a road that's a little safe to go down because of what our role is and what the administrative role is. So again, not to talk too much about it, because I don't like to talk too much, but it's always good for us to know what the background is in terms of decision making. But I know that it wasn't a good idea for people to say, we want to do something different.
Okay, Member Stein, and then if people have a hard stop, we should move to our next item.
Yeah, just two quick things. I was intrigued by Member Sarah Cox's suggestion on the stipends, and I was wondering, Mayor, if you could look into what our, I guess, authority is here. Like, as I remember, like the city council set the stipend rates, and I don't know if they appropriate that money, and if we were to cut it off and try to use it for something else, are we allowed to do that? Like, I don't know the answers to any of those questions. So I'm wondering if you could find out what we need to know before the next meeting. That would be great.
Get clarity on that. It's set by ordinance.
Okay.
So it's a law essentially that's how it is done. It's kind of an odd thing. So, but I can get clarity on that.
Thank you. I just have one other quick thing to say, which is sort of following up. I think to Member Agner's point, I think what I'm asking for is much more about us trying to understand the thinking, and for the community to understand the thinking. I think historically committees have made changes. I don't know that I would make changes. We have to hear sort of the issue, but for us as the committee that evaluates the super and oversees her performance, we really have to understand how she set about doing this task. And this is the only way for us to really understand that. So I think it's necessary for us to get it. And I'd also just say that there were discrepancies between what principals and what we were told principals were saying. And so there is some sort of confidence, at least for me and maybe for others, in that sort of description, and concerning enough that I think we need to talk about them, and we will in the evaluation process. But I think needs clarity for this
You are
cycle on who recommended what and why.
Member Stein, you're freezing, so maybe try turning your camera off.
So, and I also I want to make let me get my number right. I want to make a motion to approve a line item, an overall budget figure of $40,778,585, contingent upon the city council passing additional orders that would make up the amount between the 516 budget and that figure.
I second.
You broke up a little bit. I just want to make sure, Cassie, that you have the right amount.
Sure. So the figure I had, which I hope is the right one from the agenda, was the $40,778,585.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, that's correct. Okay. Is that what you have, Cassie? Okay. That motion was made by Member Stein. I believe it was seconded by Member Hennessy. Is that correct? Yep. Member Seraphy Cox.
Yeah, thank you. I'm curious, like Member Stein or Mayor or Dr. Bonner, if we were to pass this, then what authority would we have to come back and change? Like if, for instance, we wanted to, change the 504 coordinator to a reading interventionist, or change the digital literacy coordinator to a English teacher, or or school committee stipends to a paraprofessional, or something like that.
So as stated at the very, very beginning, that once you have voted for the bottom line, you have every right to come back and to have a conversation about how you want that bottom line allocated. And we already know that JFK, you mentioned some changes, specific changes. We already know that JFK is going to make that change of a restoration to not restoration, but to actually have a literacy person as opposed to a 504 coordinator. That those conversations have occurred. So just to reiterate, even though you're voting for the bottom line, you do have the right to come back in another meeting to discuss those allocations to seal up the fiscal year for next year.
Okay. I mean, I appreciate you reiterating it, both for clarity's sake and for the public's sake, and just, so I appreciate that.
I thought I saw another hand. Did I? No? Okay.
You did. It was me, but
All right.
we have another meeting. We have another meeting, and I'm wasting your time.
Not at all. Okay. So if there's no further discussion, Cassie, can you just reiterate what that motion is? Oh, but you're muted.
To approve $40,778,585 budget contingent upon the city council authorizing that amount.
Okay. No further discussion. Roll call, please.
Member Seraphy Cox.
Yes.
Member Stein.
Yes.
Member Hennessy.
Yes.
Member LaBounty.
Yes.
Member Agna,
Yes.
Member Davis,
Oh, she's giving you a thumbs up. I think she can't mute. Let me find her.
okay. Mayor Shara,
Yes.
Member Foster Cannon.
Yes.
Okay, great. So if there's no further discussion on this, then we will be moving to executive session. And does somebody want to make that motion, please? Oh, Member Agna, go ahead.
I move that we move to executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares.
Motion made by Member Agna, seconded by
Yep.
Member Hennessy. Chair does so declare. And so we will be recessing to executive session. And I believe that we will be coming back into open session if people want to wait. So I'm going to probably put all of us into a breakout room. And everyone else, if you want to stick around, then we will come back into open session and adjourn from open session. So motions made and seconded. Roll call, please, on entering executive session.
Member Stein,
Yes.
Member Hennessy,
Yes.
Member LaBounty. Circle back. Member Agna,
Yes.
Member Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Shara,
Yes.
Member Foster Cannon,
Yes.
Member Seraphy Cox.
Yes.
Okay, I think we're all going to go into a breakout room right now, but we will. Bobby, you're a co-host, right? Or maybe Bobby's not coming with us. All right, let's give it a try. Oh, hold on, that's not going to work.